Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Aries, which is happening on October 5th at 12 degrees of Aries. And this is going to be quite volatile because if you know anyone who has moon in Aries, or if you have the moon in Aries, you're talking about the moon equaling emotions and Aries equaling a cardinal fire sign. So there's a lot of urgency to take action and a lot of tendency to spontaneously combust, maybe. Aries being a fire sign, there's a lot of passion, but it can be kind of misguided because it's on the emotional level. And I consider emotions reactions. They're not usually, well, I would say in all cases, even positive or negative, they're not things that you're doing to further some kind of goal. They're kind of like you're responding to stimuli, and then you're taking action as a result of that. When you initiate action, to me, that is the best thing because you're doing it out of your own interests. You're not doing it to protect yourself or in defensive posture. And that's kind of what emotions can be. And when people get triggered, which is a very overused term, but there are times when people feel this vulnerability because they've experienced a certain negative thing in the past. What do they tend to do? They tend to lash out. They tend to either say something mean or they stomp out of a room. And even worse. So we already know that full moons have heightened tension because whenever there's a full moon, that means that the sun is in opposition with the moon. And when you have an opposition, so in this case we're talking about the sun being in Libra and the moon being in Aries, and these are two cardinal signs, so they're all about action. But oppositions are considered tense aspects because they are showing the polarities, so there can be extremes. And with Libra, we're talking about the couple, the partner. Libra rules the 7th house of committed partnership. So it's about thinking about the other person, whereas Aries is the 1st house of the self. It's about, I, me, mine. And one house is not better than the other. You have to think of yourself in order to honor your path. If you are too excessively involved with pleasing another person, then you can lose yourself. And what good does that do when you came here to be on your own path? But obviously, that can be taken to an extreme, and people can become very self-centered. And then you have the extreme of the partner that can never be alone, can never have an idea that is apart from the other, and is dependent, too dependent. So it's about striking a balance between self and other. And some of these issues may come to the forefront. The other thing too is that Aries is all about blunt honesty, in your face kind of communications. So there could be, because full moons are times when sometimes secrets are revealed, there could be some fireworks, and you're talking about a fire sign. Like Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. So a lot of that militant behavior, my way or the highway, intimidating behavior and attitudes, and you throw the full moon craziness, and it's like, whoa. It's just too much, you know. It's funny because I have been noticing that kind of erratic stuff happening already. And this was actually right before the new moon in Virgo. And I was just walking down the street, and I do a lot of walking. And even in a suburban environment, hearing the cars and how fast they seem to be driving for the conditions, the erratic tendencies, and just overall, it seemed very strange. So I don't know if this is part of a larger thing that is going on that, you know, deals with Uranus being in Aries. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing too, because Uranus is transiting in the sign of Aries. So that can also lend itself to a lot of explosive situations, but kind of a suddenness about it. Especially if Pluto is involved, that could be very intense. Now, I was looking at the aspects table, and there's going to be a, there's actually, it's interesting, there's actually a sextile between Uranus and Pluto. And that's actually because Uranus is at a late degree of Aries. So because it's so close to Taurus, and Taurus is an earth sign, and Pluto is in Capricorn. At the time of this full moon, Pluto is at 16 Capricorn. Pluto goes direct at the end of September, when I'm recording this, actually. Oh, wait. Has it? No, it's actually going to be this weekend. I'm recording this on the 26th. And I think it's going to be like the 29th or so when it goes direct, somewhere in a few days. So Pluto will be direct, and it will be in contact with Uranus, but in a friendly aspect. So that's good, actually, because you want them to be in a friendly aspect. And we're going to have, yeah, what I saw was Jupiter in opposition to Uranus, because Jupiter at this point will be at 28 Libra, and Uranus is at 27 Aries, so almost an exact opposition. And so, you know, Jupiter is this big planet, so it has big energy, big influence. And Uranus can be like anything can happen at any time. Now, Jupiter in contact with Uranus could be winning the lottery, but we're talking about more of a societal influence. So this could be some sudden event that occurs, and with that full moon in Aries, it's like, okay, what is this going to be? Who knows? And it doesn't mean that something is going to happen bad on that date at all, on the 5th. I'm not saying that. It could be something really surprisingly wonderful, but I just wanted to make it known that there's also Uranus in Aries. And on top of that, we have the divine lovers, Venus and Mars, at an exact conjunction, 19 degrees of Virgo. And so if you know your natal chart, you can see where that's going to land in your particular house, what house it is for you. The fact that it's in Virgo is very efficient, you know. It's not like this romance that takes your breath away. It's very, and it will be, depending on what house it's in. It could be a romantic influence, but in terms of how it affects us as a collective, it really is about, I would say, even simplicity, and we're seeing that as a movement, you know, minimalism, enjoying conservation, enjoying recycling, and because Mars deals with action and Venus deals with beautification, it's like making our world beautiful. Maybe this is something in terms of our environment, how we treat our environment, and we really need to look at things like recycling, you know, in takeout containers, just no recycling in a lot of these chains. And who knows, maybe we'll get more enlightened about that. But, you know, there is a lot of this volatility in terms of how Mercury figures into things, because Mercury is in Libra, so it is engaged with the moon, also forming an opposition with the moon. So again, being rash in one's speech, speaking out of emotion, and how will this manifest? Could this be something political? Could this be something in your private life where at the time of the full moon, you say, well, you know what? This whole time I've been having an affair, you know, in your face to that person, and kind of spontaneously. I think of the Tower card, and I can't remember the planet that is associated with the Tower card, but I think it's Mars, which would be connected to Aries as well as Scorpio. But that would be interesting. I do think it might be Mars. But let's set that aside. You think about what the Tower represents, a sudden event that kind of shakes people up, but it clears the air. So at best, we can hope for something along those lines to make things more honest, because I think of Aries as a very, what you see is what you get kind of sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac, and it doesn't have pretense. And this is why Aries people a lot of times come across as childish, when, especially in the moon position, and especially when they are perturbed, because they can throw temper tantrums. But the thing is, once they are through, they're good. And they've cleared the air and they can move on. It's just the other people around them that are like still holding on to that. Aries as a sign itself, whether it's a sun or moon, and maybe the rising sign to some degree, has a tendency to be volatile, but then they forgive very easily. If they get angry at somebody for what somebody else does, they tend to not hold a grudge, and they expect everyone else to as well. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So we shall see what is going to happen. But definitely, one thing is, I said it's going exact at after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Standard Time in the United States. So we're going to have the exact full moon in the middle of the day. I think in some ways that might be a good thing, because people will be at work. Because I think it's a weekday, the 5th. I'm assuming it's not on a Friday night. Yeah, I think it's on like a Thursday night. So most people have to work on Fridays, so hopefully it won't be too crazy. But again, there is a spontaneity associated with Aries that could be, in some cases, it could be some interesting things happening. Don't let it be you. You might want to just sit at home and just meditate and let everybody else go crazy if they want to. You don't have to. So I'm going to be picking a few oracle cards. I am going to pick a tarot card. I think I'll pick a couple, one from each of my decks. This is the Morgan Greer deck that I always use. I have the Page of Cups. I'm going to pick one from my Rider-Waite deck with the lovely plaid background that I still can't figure out what that means. Although I know Scottish. I think I have a little Scottish in me. So what do you think of this combination? Puerto Rican, Irish, and Scottish. That's bizarre to say the least, right? But let's see, and I know like the Celtic, I don't know, do the Irish use plaid? I always associate with the Scottish people. Okay, so this is 8 of Cups. You notice I got 2 cups from the tarot, so it's emotions. Okay, let's take one from the Earth. What was it called? I think it's called Earth Magic. Yeah, Earth Magic Oracle cards. Oh, I like this, even though it's like totally not appropriate to this time of year. Oh, what about you Australians? You had a, what kind of equinox? You had spring, right? We had fall, you had spring. So it just amuses me that there are people that are saying, thank God the winter is over. It doesn't make any sense. Although, you know, it's funny, in the Chicago area, like it's been 90 degrees. Of course, this is Fahrenheit, and it's just, it's so hot, and it's been like this for like a week. So it just goes to show you never know. I think I'm going to do a Doreen Virtue card. I'm not giving up my Ascended Masters cards without a fight. Okay. Oh, I've picked this before. This is a great one. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that, because that's really a great thing, and I associate that with Aries for sure. So let's look at the tarot cards. We have here the Morgan Greer deck, Page of Cups. This is like Aries, even though this is Cups, this is so Aries. Oh, okay, here, watch how I tie this together. Pages, children. Actually, Aries is connected with infants because of the first house, babies, and that's where we get the baby stuff. So with behavior and, you know, in the shadow aspect, but this is about innocence and also creative innocence. It is associated with Pisces, as you can see, the fish and the water sign with the cups. But that freshness, that innocence, and I associate that with Aries. And they tend to be naive. They can easily get the wool pulled over them because they are very straightforward. So they assume other people are going to be the same way. And so in terms of emotions, you could have people who just bear their soul or their feelings to another person. And the question is, will that person return their affection? I'm talking about like if you're in love with somebody and you've been keeping it inside, maybe something comes over you at the time of the full moon, and especially with the Venus-Mars conjunction, and you just say it, and you don't think about the after effects. The other card I got was the 8 of Cups. This is about leaving, and I think this might be associated actually with Scorpio. And in October, you know, the sun does go into Scorpio and things like that, but this is about leaving what no longer serves you. And I tied into that idea of passion, which I really associate with all of the fire signs. The fire signs are about independence, you know, loving your freedom, and about following your bliss. And especially with Aries, I associate it with being like fearless. Not being like afraid of what ifs, like I would associate perhaps with Cancer, something like, well, what if I leave my job, what if I never get another job ever again as long as I live? Then what's going to happen? An Aries person lives in the moment, and they just have this belief in their own ability to make things happen, and they usually do. You usually do not see Aries people who are paralyzed from taking action. They're always taking action. The problem with Aries is they take too much action and don't do enough reflection. So if you feel compelled to leave something which doesn't serve you, it may be that time. It may be that time, and you may just feel this spontaneous pull to do that. Okay, and let's look at these two cards. It's kind of interesting that we did get this for the summer solstice, which happened, of course, on June 21st. So is there a timing issue? This is when the sun goes into Cancer, maybe for some people. And of course, we did have an eclipse in Leo, but this is talking about earlier. So let me read from the book and see what it says. I've never picked this card before, so I'm kind of interested in the definition of it. Okay, let me see. Radiance. The word solstice originates from the Latin word solstitium, I can't pronounce it, which means stationary or stopped. This is because twice during the solar year, the sun appears to rise and set in the same place for several days. It seems to be taking a much-needed rest before making the next circuit across the sky from one solstice to the next. We feel an innate desire to be outdoors in the natural world and reap the benefits of the longest days of the year. Let the radiance of the sun inspire your inner radiance to shine forth. Release your concerns about what may happen in the future, just like I was talking about. And this card really is not like that. I was describing something I would associate more with the Fool card in the Major Arcana, which is about, you know, embarking on this journey of the unknown. You know, the Fool is the 0 card. But I was just talking about this is a card of journey too. This is more of an inner journey or spiritual journey. And focus on appreciating everything you have that is good and right. Allow Father Sun to take away your worries and cares. Do something physically active to stimulate your inner light. Dance, sing. But most important, get outdoors. Do not let any negative thoughts or habits stop you. When you are in love with life, you naturally radiate that love. During this part of your cycle, your capacity to love is greatly amplified. And, you know, the sun is in Libra. Libra is about love. In one of those supreme ironies of life, the more love you give, the more it returns to you. It starts by allowing the radiant being you truly are to be expressed in the world. Smile a little more. Notice the beauty of nature. See the humor and the paradoxes of life. Show your love, especially to those with whom you are closest. Then smile even more and watch how the world around you lights up. One thing that I would say too, if you're caught in that polarity between the self and the other, is if you're the kind of person who you know you're a little bit too self-absorbed. And this is the shadow side of Aries, is being self-centered. And I would say all of the fire signs. And by the way, I'm a Sagittarian. I said I'm not going to mention I'm a Sagittarius. I think I do that in every video. But I'm just saying that because I was saying something supposedly negative about fire signs. I'm saying this about myself. And it's because the fire signs are about creative self-expression in their own way. And in order to do that, you have to know yourself and really be in touch with who you are and what you're about. And so Aries, if you're involved with an Aries person, you may get like frustrated with them because you might think that they are all about themselves. Not all Aries people are narcissists. Neither are all Leos, which is another sign that gets accused of narcissism. But if you're involved in some kind of a situation where you know that you like to have things your own way, then you have to be a little bit more willing to be pliable. And that's something that that Libra is known for, is being more cooperative, pliable. And that's the part of that opposition. So that's also present here. And then we have the follow your heart, and that's St. Francis. And I love that because St. Francis was all about animals. So let me see, this was, let me see if I have the Ascended Masters. I hope that's Ascended Masters. Yeah. The answer to your question is in your heart. This card signifies that you can trust your heart's true desires, even if you can't clearly see how the outcome will appear or manifest. This is a situation where you're called upon to walk in faith and be true to yourself. The universe will ensure that your needs are met and will help with your relationships as you make changes. And the additional meanings for this card are: you already know what to do, trust your intuition and take action accordingly. Your feelings are accurate and valid. You're guided to make important and happy life changes. You're receiving true divine guidance through your feelings and intuition. St. Francis of Assisi was born to a wealthy Italian cloth merchant, but he later renounced his inheritance to follow an ascetic spiritual path. As he volunteered in hospitals and ministered to the sick, he gained followers who eventually became the Franciscans. Many legends speak of St. Francis's ability to communicate with animals, and today he's the patron saint of the environment, which I was kind of referencing, and animals. Call upon St. Francis for help in situations where your family or friends don't understand your choices or spiritual path, or any issues involving animals. And there's actually a really great movie that came out. It was by Franco Zeffirelli, and it came out, I think it was about 1972, so it's like kind of hippie-ish, still very, delightfully counterculture type of movie, but very gorgeously filmed, called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. And it's about the life of St. Francis, and I really enjoyed it, and it has music by Donovan. If you are into him, he did the soundtrack, and so it's, did I say soundtracked? Soundtrack. So it's really a neat experience. So yeah, it's really cool. This is going to be certainly an interesting experience for us all. So good luck to everybody. Take care. Bye.